Hello everybody, if you're joining me today, my name is Mr. Amp, and the first move of Magnus Carlsen versus the World has just dropped. It hasn't just dropped, it's been a little while now, but he did drop move number one, being e4. You know, very principled, theoretical. Again, we're playing a chess 960 game, so it's not, the best by test e4 that you would see, or that you would kind of consider it to be in a classical game. I think in classical chess, blitz chess as well, any chess games that we play, e4 of course is our most likely opening move if we're playing white. But considering the various differences in the back rank here, all of the implications of the varying pieces and their positions, he has decided to go for e4, which does contradict my fianchetto idea, and that's probably because I hope at least he considered this as an option, but kind of just figured out that eventually he would want to have this here, and that playing something like e3 is a little too soft for him. He is an amazing player, so he definitely wants to be on the offense, especially playing white. And so if he was to do this, combined with this, he's blocking his own fianchetto. So I think that's probably part of the reason, at least, why he leaned away from that. And he's gone ahead and played e4, and so I'm gonna go over kind of what I see as black here. Obviously, what comes to mind first for me is just symmetrical response. There's not a knight here that can come out to kind of attack this. There is a knight here that can come to defend this, so that's good for our side. And similarly here, his knight can come in and attack us, but it requires him to block his d pawn, and we could do the same to attack here. I wouldn't play this immediately because I am a little afraid of this, right? But I'm afraid of giving up space in the center in general, even if, say, we can't swing out to either of these two spots if we were to do this, right? Hold on, that's the wrong board. After this, if he pushes, we can't swing out to here or here, because the bishop covers, right? And we have nothing defending. This pawn's here, this pawn's here. So the queen doesn't see, the bishop doesn't see, right? So that's not an option, that's not an option. We could take the center, but I don't like that. It's not really defended by anything. It's not really even creating any threats. So it's really just easy to kick out. You can kick it out with something like d4, even f4 here, because, kind of, I think as we approach this game, we want to think of the f and c pawns as kind of reversed in a way. The f pawn, which you would utilize in like the f pawn being the c pawn, plays the role that you would see the c pawn doing in the Carl kind of, or the Sicilian structures. So with keeping that in mind, kind of swapping the way we think about these two. Moving the f pawn here would absolutely be a great move, because not only does it force our knight to move again, taking care of our options. We can't go here, here, or here, or here. We can't go here or here, so we're left with these two. And not only does it kick the knight out, but it also patrols this option. So it leaves us with only one option for our knight, and that's already, giving him a lot of control. He is forcing us to make one move and one move only, and we don't really want to give up that kind of control this early. And of course, not horrible by any means. It actually encourages this, again, kind of kicking it out. And between here and here, it's really kind of obvious, I think, to me. If you hop back in, you lose the knight, because you get the same exact spot that you were in literally 2 moves ago, except here all of the squares are covered. So you don't want to return back to the place that you were in that was initially perilous. And so it's going to force us to go back here. We've blocked our e-pawn. There's nowhere else to go. Yes, we're threatening this, but he could defend that with any of these 3 moves. Even I would throw this fourth in here as an option, albeit a bad one. But even here, the computer presses him to take space. If I had this position, I would probably play g3 here, just to kind of be safe. And also, I like connect 4. Shout out Eric Rosen. But here, if he keeps pressing us, can't go here. We can return back to here, but as a general rule, you don't want to go back to where you were when you were struggling. And there's actually no backwards moves we can make because we have pieces on all those squares. So um, it's kind of a tough decision, between these four. Obviously, these two are covered, but it's kind of just a tough decision really between these two at least. If we go G5, we're getting closer to the edge of the board. We don't like that. There's no square here, here where my cursor is, or here. So we're immediately just giving ourselves less options for motion. And I think everyone can see, this here, and we're kind of just cooked. The best we can do for ourselves right now is looks like what, G6? It says G6. I mean, we could even desperately wiggle the knight around, but after queen out here, yeah, we're not retaining this guy. There's just no chance. So we don't want to caught up. We don't want to get caught up in something like that. So all the way back here, I wouldn't want to allow that. So I would just do this. And I think that's a boring move. That's the move everyone sees. It's the safe move, but again, we're playing the greatest of all time here, and we're not Mikhail Tal, so we don't want to be taking risks, especially definitely not on move 2. We want to play as safe and as principled as we possibly can. Make him kind of prove his skills to us, which he undoubtedly is going to. With each and every move that he plays, of course, but as is true with all games, you don't want to give your opponent more power over you than they've earned, right? So we want to make him earn all of this control, and it looks like it's going to ask him to, what's it going to ask him to do? F3, is that what that's saying? Okay, it's not what I would do if I was him there, but all cool and good for the computer. I might do something like this. This is even passive. This is pursuing kind of a Vienna structure. If we land here, you'll notice kind of a Vienna, King's Gambit is what this kind of looks like, pattern recognition wise. Which there's some advocates for the Vienna. It's a little outdated, but definitely nothing wrong with it by any means. But I don't think he's going to go for something like that. I think here, he doesn't want to go here. He doesn't want to go here with his other central pawn, which D and E are also kind of swapped in a sense because the D pawn is now in front of the king instead of the queen. And the D pawn, he's committed early. And so he could do something like here, which would be, Queen's Gambit. But he doesn't have the option to, if we were to accept, he doesn't have the option to develop the central variation, and which I play quite often, by the way, in the Queen's Gambit accepted. The central variation, and he doesn't, this is a knight, this isn't a bishop, this isn't threatening to retake. But it's still a good option, I think, okay, maybe just not. Because here, I would have a look at this and I would say, all right, White's looking okay here. They've got the center control. They've deflected the pawn successfully. But if we follow this train of thought here, it's going to want us to gambit another pawn, or gambit a pawn ourselves, rather. And it's going to encourage to take. All right, and then let me follow this. Always good to learn. We're going to go here. I'm assuming we're probably trying to bait this, right? An overextension, kind of a, oh, okay, first of all, the queen covers that. So yeah, that's not even plausible. It's going to ask for G4, okay? And I'm assuming that's probably baiting en passant, which, by the way, I think if we get a chance to en passant in this game against Magnus, I think we should absolutely take that chance, regardless of outcome. We're all here for fun. We're all here to be a part of chess history, and I think en passant is a self-explanatory obligation, at least at our level of play, right? So I think for the vibes, it'd be hilarious to play en passant, even if it's pretty obvious that it's not the best move. But here, en passant is said to be the best move, by the computer at least. And we're going to retake with the h-pawn, which absolutely shocks me. I would assume you want to develop this bishop, maybe even the queen, but I would prioritize the bishop here. But wow, retaking with the h-pawn. What do you even do with that? I mean, we play something simple like, knight d6, okay, we blocked our d-pawn. This is already, far beyond my comprehension, as you could probably hear. But it's looking for bishop d3, and so you can see here we're having a look here. But that I don't really see the problem with that, because we're covered, right? We're covered on this pawn by 2 pieces, and you just add a second X-ray attacker to this piece. Even if we do something like this, well, you actually shouldn't do that, even though it looks like you're adding a third attacker to this. Say this pawn gets out of the way at some point. We've got 3 pieces, or he has 3 pieces having a look at our pawn, but you'll notice if he takes with the bishop, if he takes with the bishop, we actually don't have to really do anything, because with the queen in front of the rook like this, well, we do have to do something. We don't retake. We move our queen out, probably to somewhere like here, to kind of have a look at the rook, right? How that's going to look. Let me go ahead and just play this out for us. Here, say this happens, right? Maybe here, and then if he takes with the bishop, that immediately gives us the advantage, because as I said, see, I'm at least a decent player. Yeah, exactly this, d5, and he can't really move the bishop. There's no spots he can go that it's a check, and he's essentially allowed himself to be pinned to his queen. So definitely doesn't want that. And we're also threatening just straight up like this pawn with the queen. The queen is dangerous here. So we're threatening this, and we're going to force either something like this, or this, maybe this, maybe this. I would say probably not this. But yeah, so he's not going to go for that, and I don't really see, to me that looks like that's what the point of this move is, if I'm being quite honest. But let's keep following it, right? We go here. C3? Okay, so we've kind of, we've put our bishop on the long diagonal, or he has. He's put his bishop on the long diagonal. No problem with that. It's going to say h5, and I got to say here, I'm completely lost, to be quite truthful. Here, we've already gone so many moves of kind of projection that, I'm still not grasping it. To be quite fair, I think these knights, being where his bishops are, I think it's totally fine here. Of course, he's got his d-pawn out, we've got it blocked, but that's not doing too much for now. It's kind of preventing this, which is a bit of a thorn in the side, but I don't think it's detrimental. But it's saying we have the advantage, and I gotta be so for real here. I can't see why. I don't see anything really too pressing here. He's gonna develop a knight. We're going to go, what are we going to do? We're going to develop a bishop. I'd say probably f7, maybe g6 to gambit another pawn. We don't want to do that. Okay, cool. Unnecessary gambit. We're going to go here to kind of pressure this pawn, because he just did move his knight, which was the second defender of this pawn. And again, if he just does, here, and then we take his pawn, he does have this option, which is, it's an option, but I would say with the king being here, even the fact that the bishop is here to cover this check after we do it, here, and here, with the bishop being here, yeah, we don't like that. Even though we get 3 pawns for a bishop, so it's technically even. We don't necessarily like that, because he's blocking and getting kind of a tempo back. So I think he's winning that exchange. So yeah, here I'm just going to go ahead and rewind, because we're on a plenty complicated tangent, which we can explore, after the next few moves. But this all comes from, playing that e5, right? And then assuming he goes for a queen's gambit. I think he's gone e5, really, quite possibly to play this here, right? Because it pins our f-pawn, which for both sides can be a valuable asset. Pins our f-pawn to the queen here. If we play e5, if we play a little more conservative, right? We go here. Well, we're safe from this. We can move our f-pawn. We can't actually move it there because it's still pinned, but we can move the f-pawn, right? But I don't think that's preferable. it doesn't look too great to me to have, you know, two pawns just moved up one square like this. You know, there's some positions where, or some openings where that's totally valid and totally called for. I don't think that's the case here. Um, I think it's a little too light, giving him a little too much space, because he could just start taking that space we're giving him. You know, he's basically getting control over. He's putting the battle onto, you know, this row as opposed to this row. And we kind of want to we want to match him where he's at. So I would go here. You know, don't be afraid of this, right? If we know it's going to happen, then we know it's going to happen. You know, I think would see knight b6 or d6 here. D6, of course, because then we get that same thing I talked about in the move 0 video. We get the double attack here, and his options, he basically has two. Which it's actually, technically he had a third option, which was the best option when I went over this kind of line in my other video. But here, this move is actually worse than it was initially, because in that initial analysis I did, the knight was here, and so he could just take back after we kicked him out. But here, we kick him out like this, and actually we have the advantage. So he only has two options, here or here. Here, looks like not very great. We just take the bishop here, and he's doubled, and we are up more than a pawn. Again, because with it being doubled, especially on the king side like this, you know, doubled f pawns essentially. You could think of these as doubled f pawns, functionally speaking. It also allows us to play this and just have a look at that. So, not great there. And then the best move, you know, moving it back, right, covers everything for now, but creates an inconvenience for him not being able to have this central pawn really in the game, at least for another couple of moves. He doesn't want to have to deal with that. So I don't think, really, I don't think we're going to be seeing this move 2. I think we may see this if he wants to defend this pawn before going here move 2. I think, you know, what are the odds really of this as a gambit? I think very low. You know, if here, yeah, he's having a look at it. Yeah, you know, he's got nice control on the queen side here, but I think I don't think that's too much of an issue. I think, you know, knight out, which we want to play anyway, that defends, and you know, we've got our advantage still here, so that would give away the advantage. He doesn't want to do that. The game encourages f3 to defend this pawn, and I'm assuming, you know, after we play, you know, something simple, right? This is actually a preventative move, right? Seeing this, so that's probably, you know, best move. Say if he does play f3, we're gonna see this. We're gonna say, okay, cool, we want to do that. That's gonna prevent this. But say we don't prevent it. Say we're feeling a little weird, right? This is, what is knight c4 or bishop c4? It's, if I give the computer time to think, it says it's the best move, and I would absolutely agree. I would absolutely say that's what I see. That's what I would think here. And really, with the queen already being in kind of a tucked, dormant position, you can see his queen's already on a diagonal that's, you know, not too active yet, but definitely could be in the game later on in the game. And we're prevented from being on that diagonal, so we have to develop our king either through, you know, this file or something like this and this, and then I mean, where do you even go from there? That's, you really got to kind of put in some effort to like reroute if you wanted to do that. So I would see this, right? Absolutely. And then I would play, you know, here, or well, I guess you could play here now. But like I said, you know, being realistic here, I think we're all smart enough to see this. If after f3, right, we see this, and then that's going to force him to kind of, you know, change his plan. It's not like he, you know, has committed really fully to anything. He's just kind of hinting at this with that. And so, because again, the weakness of this initially is just that this pawn is undefended. That's why he can't do this, right? So defends the pawn. We understand, you know, he's probably having a look at this. He wants this, right? So we don't want him to get that. Move the knight here, and it's going to want him to go g3. So I think a lot of the analysis we've done so far is really looking for a fight on the queen side, because that's where the bishops are. Right, and again, we don't want to kind of sort of castle or move into a space where we are getting looked at by his bishops or have that threat. So I think it's going to be a duel on the queen side, absolutely. Maybe not this exact position. Maybe it won't look exactly like this. I think if I was to kind of assign a likelihood for move 2 being f3, assuming, of course, that we play e5, I would say probably it looks, a little mid. It looks a little soft. But if you really understand that it's the purpose is to defend this so that he can play this, I think if you understand that, I think you could say that the probability of him playing that is pretty high. We could look at some other options. We've already looked at knight d6. We could look at this, right? Kind of just doing a little Benoni, old Benoni gambit here, which I have played in classical chess. You throw this out immediately. They usually push, and you kind of get a bucket structure in most cases. If you play the Benoni, which you're giving up space. In a classical chess game, of course, it blocks your knight, right? So I have plenty of experience with that myself, playing that in blitz games. And the reason I play it in blitz games is just so that you can go like here and here if they're not paying attention. It's it's all right, but it's kind of like the Sicilian sort of in a way, if you want to think about it like that. But it's not a great opening. It's been somewhat refuted. I mean, it's still an opening. It's still a valid option. It's just been, if someone knows what they're doing, it's hard to play it. But yeah, so we can go here, but there's nothing really that can immediately retake if he does capture. And again, we're kind of just allowing e5. Do we really want e5? What does e5 do? Well, it really prevents this. e5, here and then here. Well, that actually gives us the advantage because he's also just given us space. But if we played something kind of passive, well, this actually prevents e5, at least for now. I would absolutely go like f4 here. For him, I would just start launching, right? If I was white in this case, but I really do think we want to prevent that e5 move, right? We just don't want to give him a bunch of space, because if we do give him e5, then he has f4 by all means. If we're messing around, he could do either of these, and it just becomes really strong. And I think he would probably want to do these first, right, to kind of prep this in a way. And if we allow either of those two, we can't play this anymore because we're just giving this away. So I think starting with that, right, kind of just a symmetrical response, preventing this, not really preventing it by much means, but controlling this, I should say, not giving up anything really for free. I think that's probably our best course of action, and that's absolutely what I'm going to go for. So if we go back here to the voting, right, e5 is the most popular. Some people are playing f6, which to me it kind of looks like they want a like, what is that? I mean, I guess they want like a Slav defense sort of look to it. That's fine. I personally actually hate playing against the Slav defense because I play the Queen's Gambit as white quite often. I don't like the Slav defense, so I don't like playing against it. I myself don't play it that often. So if we do go for that, it's absolutely fine. There's nothing terribly wrong with it. It would be my personal preference, and I think it's a little less principled. Other options include knight c6, preventing that e5 as I talked about. Nothing wrong with that. I could honestly get behind that more than I could f6, to be quite honest. If e5 wasn't an option, I think this would be my second choice. We're also looking at things like c5. Playing technically here a Dutch, right? Technically a Dutch defense. Being aggressive here, and there's very well outlined theory to the Dutch that you kind of have to stick to if you play the Dutch, and Magnus absolutely knows that theory. I myself have played the Dutch, but it comes with kind of telegraphed moves that are implied when you play the Dutch, because you really want to. I mean, once you start doing this, you want to follow that structure. Otherwise, you're going to leave your king weak. So, I think if we play this, we're essentially telling him what our next few moves are going to be, and that gives him a lot of control. It gives him a lot of options because he doesn't have to think, as much. He can kind of just know what we're gonna do, and react to it ahead of time, kind of just pre- um, uh, prescriptively or whatever. So I would definitely go with e4. I think most people are thinking e4. I think there's some goobers in here, right, that are getting a little silly playing stuff like this, calm little hang of a pawn. Um, Maybe some Scandinavian fans out there, technically England Gambit fans, perchance. I mean, d6 isn't terrible necessarily. It prevents the bishop here, but again, we want to prevent the bishop from coming here. Really, what we want, and by playing d6, we would block our knight here. So, where are my lines at? So we don't want to do that. We kind of want to leave this open for our knight, at least for now. So I definitely think the e pawn, going for kind of a queenside theory based game is definitely the move. But we'll see how it ends up. I don't want to kind of sort of call anything yet. Of course, there's 100,000 people, plus in here that that might end up joining in, and this is only 8,000 votes. So there's still plenty of votes to come in. Absolutely, this could easily change, but yeah, I wouldn't have a problem with any of these except maybe f6. Any of these top few, I would definitely start to question things like a5. Absolutely, but I don't think there's too much of a risk of that happening. You never know. You never know. But thank you for joining me. I hope you had a great time. I hope you'll continue to follow along. I hope you'll continue to participate in this amazing historical moment, historical game, I should say. And hope to see you later on. Everybody have a great rest of your days. Thank you.